السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، الحمد لله ذي الملك والملكوت ذي العزة والجبروت، الحمد لله حي قيوم لا ينام، عزيز لا يضام، قهار لا يرام، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. O you believe, fear Allah as He should be feared and die not except on the state of Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most merciful bestow upon us the gift to die on the state of Islam. Allahumma ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. أما بعد، يقول الباري سبحانه وتعالى في محكم التنزيل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: ولا تركنوا إلى الذين ظلموا فتمسكم النار. In this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing to the believers, saying, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا, do not incline to الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا, to the transgressor, to the people who act in injustice. فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارِ, lest fire will be touching you. Which is mean whoever who does such a thing, he will be وَالْعِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ, thrown and being tasting from the torment of the fire. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال وَمَا لَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ مِنْ أَوْلِيَاءَ, and you will not find any helpers besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you will not be helped. Allah ثُمَّ لَا تُنصَرُونَ. In this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing a type of threatening, and this is to the believer who've been in the first generation witnessing the presence among them of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this action, to see how important for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it linked with or to associate it with the punishment. And one of the most grievous punishment, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, in the hereafter is to be, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, admitted or thrown in the fire. It's just to be inclined, just to be inclined. And Imam al-Hasan al-Basri has been narrated that he said, rahimahullah ta'ala, the fundamental of the deen being summarized between two la. قال جعل الله سبحانه وتعالى أصل الدين بين لاءين. أصل الدين, the fundamental of the deen, Allah made it to be between two la. Two la, do not and do not. قال لا تطغوا ولا تركنوا. لا تطغوا, do not transgress, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the ayah before the one I just related. قال Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَاسْتَقِمْ, be upright as you have been ordained, you and those who accepted repentance or repented with you. And then قال وَلَا تَطْغَوْا, do not transgress. So do not transgress is the way how to safeguard and preserve uprightness, the deen, the substance of the deen, the whole deen. وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا, and do not incline to the transgressor, to please them, to be with them, to be friend with them, in a way like you might, by doing that, accepting what they're doing. This is, subhanallah, as being one of the fundamental from which the deen, the fundamental of the deen is constituted, making like la tarkanu become the second one, means that it has a very important aspect that we need to define. What is this important aspect? The fact to not incline to the transgressor help the ummah to keep the purity of their oneness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to keep the purity and the safety of their understanding and thinking and perceiving, and to keep their wala to be their full alliance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the impact that we would like to emphasize on in this khutbah is the fact that such an action can have an effect on one's perception and one's thinking, in a way that a person, when he sees the evil, when he inclines to this type of people, to sit with this type of people, to hang out with them, to gather with them, to go with them, to watch what they do, to see what they do, to read what they're doing, and everything, especially that in the society that we live in, we are surrounded with all these actions. And the transgressor, the one who transgressed the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believer or non-believer. But because for us, we look at it from the perspective of the believer, anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said must to be done, and anything must be haram, it's haram. Whether it's done by a believer who committing a sin or a non-believer. For us, we have to be away from it, because it's not about the person who acting in way of conflicting the way of Allah, but about the action itself that we need to be away from it. So here, when you're looking at this perspective, knowing that such an action, it might have an impact on our way of thinking and way of perceiving, which is mean like the evil thing, it becomes something, accepted in our heart. We say, it's fine. No, it's not fine. Because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قَالَ لَا تَرْكَنُوا لَا تَرْكَنُوا, do not incline. So here, this very way serious, severe threatening for doing such an action or relating to such an action, make us aware how important is the action, when many of us, they will not take it like, they even take it lightly because they don't think it's something big. But this is a reminder from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to value what is should be big into our heart, and to be scared from it, to be alerted from such a thing. Al-Imam Sufyan al-Thawri was asked by a tailor, he said, I make the clothes of the sultan, of the leader, of the high, the chief or the sultan, which is the king. Am I from the agent who helping the the people who are helping the transgressor? Am I one of the helper of the transgressors? He said, no, you are one of them. You are one of them. He said, the helper of the transgressor who is selling you the thread and he said you the needle. That's the helper. The same Imam Ahmed, when one of the guardian in the prison, he said, in the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about the al-zalimina wa a'wanum, the transgressor and their helpers, that they're going to have the wrath of Allah, is hadith sahih? He said, yes, it is sahih, it's authentic hadith. He said, am I then one of the helpers of the transgressor? He told him, no, you are not a helper. You are one of them. You are one of the transgressors. Because the one, he said, who fix your hair and fix your food and sell and buy from you is the one who is from the helper of the transgressor. This is the perspective of inclining. For this reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizing the Quran on such aspect that it might not seem to us something big, but it is a big when you reflect in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال وقد, and this is in Surah Al-An'am, قال وقد نزل عليكم في الكتاب أن إذا سمعتم آيات الله يكفر بها ويستهزأ بها فلا تقعدوا معهم حتى يخوضوا في حديث غيره. It has been already revealed to you in the book that if you see a company they are, denying or ridiculing the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the verses of Allah, the ahkam of Allah, the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the divine guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do not sit with them till they will change the discussion and get into something else. I said, and if you do otherwise, if you do, you are then one of them. You are like them. إِنَّكُمْ إِذًا مِثْلَهُمْ. إِنَّكُمْ إِذًا مِثْلُهُمْ, which is make the believer, when you read such a thing, he said, by just my sitting with people who are talking about things that conflict with the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just listening, I'm going to become one of them? Yes, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling you. Because sitting and being like, being nice and being kind, it's fine. They talk about this gender issue, they talk about this thing. All us Muslims also, we want to talk about our rights, so we come hand to hand and to try to help ourselves. No. You are doing something so big that is altering your own creed, that is, corrupting your identity and is making you one of them. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. For this reason, your brother, respected sister, to be aware of such things. How to do it? Do it under the umbrella of the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not do it in a way of a cultural, social thing that is being ruled and governed by a whole identity or whole way of ruling that is a secular way. And the secular way, meanness, they really exclude God from the element of their governance, of their way of planning, of their way of organization. Therefore, one of the things that is very important as to know in the line of what we are talking about, there is التدين والأخلاق. التدين is the way how you implement the deen. And the way how you implement the deen need to be coupled, associated with the akhlaq, with your moral. Because if you do practice the deen without the proper akhlaq related or required to make you a true believer, therefore your tadayin might categorize this person among the munafiqeen. Because among the hypocrites, there are people who pray with the Prophet ﷺ. They make the tasbih and they make, subhanAllah, the fasting and they pay the zakat and they do all of that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about these people, they're going to be in the lowest level of the hellfire. Why? Because they didn't have the akhlaq. What is the type of akhlaq? The type of the honor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the ayah that I have mentioned before, قَالَ أَيَبْتَغُونَ عِنْدَهُمْ الْعِزَّةِ, they are taking the disbelievers as allies, are seeking to get from them honor and power. The honor and the power belongs all to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The honor and the power belongs all to Allah. So being devoid of such akhlaq, of such morality, of such real izzah on honor, that you take it from the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seeking helper to help you, provide you this pride, then the problem, we are secularizing the deen. And then secularizing the religion make us to be away from the religion. We feel like everything is secured now. Down in the generation, everything is going to change if we do not change today. If you are not aware of what we are doing and what among us people with a good intention, But this good intention, it's not proper according to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'll tell you two examples from the manifestation of the secularization of the religion that many people are following, and they are altering their aqidah, altering their identity, because the identity we are now, people are brushing and they are like, commercializing, is not an identity of a true Muslim that he followed the guidance of Allah, but an identity more social and cultural way. I'll give you one of the concepts. This is one of the manifestations of the symbol of the secularization of our deen. To make it secular, to make it more like leaning and inclining to the way of the secular more than the way of the Quran, the guidance of the Quran. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayat has taught us, clarifying to us that this way, if you incline and if you sit with the people, imagining people they're sitting where they want to legalize, drugs, they want to legalize, gender, and they want to legalize all the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make extremely haram in His book. And you say, no, we are doing it for the sake of the Muslim. Should read back the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such a people, they do not even have the audacity to talk about such a thing even on the member. Why? Because they think that they're conflicting with their, commitment that they have in the politics or in the party that they are adhering to. And this is, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, according to His book, you are like them. This is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know these people, they have a good intention, but your good intention need to validate it. The action that you have been, coming from this good intention, you have to make this action be also in compliance with the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the concepts that has been created, which does not have any relation, with the fundamental of the deen, which is the concept of American Muslim. Many of you, they're going to say, but this is concept, yeah, truly you are American Muslim. But think about it. It doesn't have any relation with the Sharia. Who created this concept? This concept is a social construct concept. It's not a terminology or a term that created in the heart of the Sharia. I mean, in the books of the Aqidah, we have a whole chapter, a whole part talking about Al-Asma' wal-Ahkam, the names or the titles, and their rules related to it. When I say, for example, a believer, it has all the set of rules that comes with the believer. The way to the honor, the way to take care of, to help, to support. When it comes to the kafir, the disbeliever, the person to respect in distance as long as that he does not hurt you, the person that you cannot marry from them, the person that you cannot do. So there is ahkam. When you take me like American Muslim, where do you fit this into this ahkam of the Sharia? But indeed it is a creation, as it has been created with one purpose, is political purpose, not for the sake of the Tawheed. Believers are all united under La ilaha illallah. That was not the sake. Therefore here when we're talking a social concept, then it is assimilated at the same social concept, concept of the genders, that they are telling you this is like a he becomes she and a she becomes he. It's the same category, dear brother, respected sister. Just reflect on it. This is just an awareness for you to reflect and think about things that they are, subhanAllah, getting to crawl into our society, into our community, instilled into our young ones, into our youth, in our adult, and they start to think about it with the pride, say, we are American Muslims. This is destroying the first pledge that the Prophet ﷺ has made in Medina, which is the brotherhood and sisterhood. Therefore, your African Muslim is different Muslim, or the Asian coming from Asia is a different Muslim. Then we are no American, so we are belonging to the society. This is who we are. And this social concept, which is American Muslim, what is reflect more cultural thing. Reflect more the way like we are part of the society who have the right to vote. That's why people now they're thinking in a very secular way, unlock the power of the Muslim. What is the power of the Muslim? Is your voice to change? That is your power. Your power over Muslim comes into your izzah, into your reliance on Allah, into your resilience, into your sabr, into your way of hasting to the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Jannah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال سارعوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة عرضها السماوات والأرض أعدت للمتقين. Now when you think about it, dear brother, respected sister, how this is building a new identity within our community, that becomes like we are dissociated. Still, alhamdulillah, we have the good hearts here. They think about their brother in Palestine and in Gaza and in China and everything. We are hurt, all of us. But this concept slowly crawling into our system to change us. And how people, they look at us as a social concept. They don't look at your religion as a religion which is the last of the religion, which had the solution for the whole humankind. They look at you as a group, as a minority, like the LGBT group, like this group Hispanic. You are a minority who you'll have your culture. One of the aspects of your culture is the hijab. So it becomes the hijab is a cultural thing. That's why you see it all over in the commercial ads. Why? Because it's not religious, the hijab. They look at as a culture, as a social construct of people called themselves Muslim American. It does not have anything to do with the moral, does not have anything to do with the akhlaq or with the deen. And this is a big problem. So you see, dear brother, respected sister, interacting with such ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make for us for prohibited. And Imam al-Hassan, he said, this is part of the fundamental of your deen. Therefore, desensitization, we are inviting it into our system to become, subhanAllah, looking, down the generation, looking at this gender thing is something normal. You will find a group of Muslims, maybe they'll go with also advocating for their sake, which has happened, actually, it did happen. This same group, they used to come with the Muslim advocating in their sake. Why? Because they consider us as a minority like them. And this is, subhanAllah, dear brother, respected sister, this is very dangerous for the heart of the believers. Very dangerous. The second, manifestation or symbol, just in brief, which is how people with the secularization of the deen, because everything is computed, everything is thought, everything is analyzed from a materialistic perspective. Therefore, all the events are looked and analyzed in a materialistic way. So when we have these people, when they have the secularization of the deen, of the religion, to see things in a materialistic way, what they look, for example, in what's happening in Gaza, they look all this destruction, all, subhanAllah, things are being destroyed. They said, this is the defeat. All these buildings, all this crumble, all this, subhanAllah, this massive destruction, all these people who been killed, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept them all as a shuhada. All these people is for them, from a perspective, materialistic perspective, this is the loss, this is the defeat. Who is the cause of this? The cause of this, who provoked this tyrant person, therefore the cause is the resistance. This is, dear brother, respected sister, is a materialistic view. Why? Because these people, by having their deen secularized, they've been taken away the sense of honor, that sense of akhlaq, of moral, who make the believer to be a believer. It's gone. It's gone. That's why the believer who preserve, who safeguard their sense of honor, their sense of pride, their sense of tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their sense of being strong in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You'll find that iman, when it's settled in the heart, will elevate them above the materialistic thing. Then they look at the victory in their resilience. They look at their victory in their endurance. They look at their victory because down of the road they're going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who chose them to be the martyrs. That is the true victory. That is the true help. Because how much you're going to live in this earth? How much, subhanAllah, how many years a civilization or a nation or a government can resist? 100 years, 200 years. How the Romans, they, subhanAllah, they lasted in the area of the Sham more than 700 years. What are they now? The Byzantines. And you look at the history, where are they now? And Fir'aun, Dhul Awtad, where are they now? Wa Thamud wa Ad, where are they now? Therefore, when you look at such a thing in a materialistic way, you're going to feel sad and hurt. These people, they do not have homes. Yes, they do not have. But this is not the point. This is not the point. This is how the secularization of the deen alter your perception, change your aqidah. You become, wal-iyadu billah, without this akhlaq, a person become hypocrite. That's what Allah told us. Hypocrite. Why? Because he does not have those proper moral, moral standard to make him true believers, to make them true believers. The Prophet ﷺ left for Uhud knowing that he's not going to win the first round of Uhud. He knew. Why he left then? How he knew? He saw in his dream. قال رأيت فيما قال الرؤيا, when he said it, he narrated it to his companion. I saw a cow. قال بقرة تنحر, a cow that is slaughtered. And قال ثلمة في ذباب سيبي, I saw a ship into the edge of my sword. And I make the interpretation that the cow is a group of my companion will be killed. And the ship into my sword, I make the interpretation of it as one of my member of my family will be killed. It was Hamza. Hamza wa ma adraka ma Hamza. Do you think the Prophet ﷺ could have avoided the killing of Hamza or the killing of the companion? Why he left? Because you're going to fulfill the order of Allah regardless of what is going to happen. The Prophet ﷺ being given this, knowledge of the future, but that knowledge of the future didn't change his decision. Why? Because his decision is to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to strive in his sake subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever is going to happen is going to be good. How good? When we lost all our homes, when we lost, yes, it is good. How long you going to live on this earth? Allah created you for eternity, not to live for a few years. And really 100 years is also few years. Because when you compare it to the 50,000 of years, and every day from this 50,000 years is 1,000 years in our way how we compute the days, that is the day of judgment. That's totally another full life that you're going to live standing waiting for your judgment. The Prophet ﷺ left to teach us that you follow the order of Allah, the command of Allah. In following the command of Allah is the blessing, is the rahmah, is the izzah, is the honor, is the pride, is the power, is the strength. What is going to happen next? That's in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And do not think that Allah is unaware of the transgressor are doing. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Ibrahim, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا عَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ. He left the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it happened what happened. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed Surah Al-Imran to come healing for those wounds, to come as glad tidings, to show that the great triumph, it was in your patience, or your believer. Your great triumph, it was in your endurance, or believers. They know that from the beginning of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about the sabirun, those who endured and those who endured patiently. From the beginning of the surah, he said, to whom this Jannah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared, he said, as-sabireen was-sadiqeen, those patient and those truthful in their jihad, truthful in their struggle, truthful with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you go farther in the surah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, give the glad tidings to the believer, despite their defeat in the first round. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Do not weaken, do not grieve. You have the upper hand if you're truly believers. Yeah, Allah, we have the upper hand when after this happened to us. Yes, you have the upper hand. You have to understand, because this is into the realm of the unseen, not in the physical world determined or restricted, and think people that they had the power. They do not have any power. The whole power all belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you go farther in the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال وَإِن تَتَّقُوا وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا. If you have patience and taqwa, and they'll come to you attacking you with rage, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reinforce you with 5,000 of angels trained for battles. And you go farther in the ayah, and he said, imagine how many devotees they fought along the prophets, and they didn't lost heart, they didn't lose any heart, they didn't have any loss of heart. They didn't weaken. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the glad tidings to the believer. قَالَ وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الصَّابِرِينَ. Allah loves the patient one. Can you imagine when someone he's striving and struggling, he's elevated from the realm of the physical world to be connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, longing to Him. What is a great reward? His great reward, Allah with him, because He said in this ayah, Allah with the sabirin. And He said in the ayah that we have mentioned, Allah loves the sabirin. Then you're going to be with the one who is with the sabirin, and you are patient here, and the one who loves the sabirin, and you are patient. So you are getting the great reward. The companionship of Allah and the love of Allah is greater than the homes, is greater than the cars, is greater than the families. It is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to you. That's the true believer, what they feel. Because when you feel the taste of the iman, when you taste the taste of honor and izzah, therefore you understand what the meaning of the striving in the sake of Allah. Then Allah addressing to us, He said, do you think you're going to paradise? Till Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make manifest or proven, till you will be proven from you, who's among you who truly struggle in the sake of Allah and endure it with patience. أَمْ حَسِبْتُمْ أَن تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ وَلَمَّا يَعْلَمِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا مِنْكُمْ وَيَعْلَمَ الصَّابِرِينَ. And what is the last ayah in Surah Ali Imran that was revealed after Ghazwat Uhud? قَالَ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اصْبِرُوا. Have patience. وَصَابِرُوا. Vie out constancy. وَرَابِطُوا. And be always ready for the struggle in the sake of Allah. One of its meaning, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, and fear Allah, that you may be successful. That is the great triumph. And this is how, as a believer, we keep ourselves safe from the secularization of the deen, to become our deen just, a title of a cultural way, or our deen, our slogan of some Muslim who wears some nice scarves on their head, or our deen who becomes like, this group of Muslims who can have, an impact in the vote in a system that you will not, as a believer, hope to bring out of it a good thing. As Allah said, إن الله لا يصلح عمل المفسدين. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على النبي المصطفى أما بعد. It is a necessity, a requirement, and an obligation for every believer to be alerted from such commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in His book. To not incline, to not be with those who ridicule ayatullah. Someone said, no, they don't ridicule Allah, they respect us. Are they not saying that this is halal? Are they not saying that it's the right of a person to change their gender to become totally different person? Are not they saying that, the action of people of flute is legalized and something that is part of the akhlaq? They are ridiculing the way of Allah. This is what it means. And you sit with them. And this is, your brother, respected sister, someone should not say, oh, some people are pessimists, or we don't see any good in this. It's not about that. It's about the reality. It's about the truth. Your optimism needs to be founded on the basis of the truth. Do not delude yourself. This is exactly what it means that your perception is changing. That's what it means. For this reason, preserving and safeguarding, don't say that I'm commanding or I don't have the choice. No, if you say such a thing, you are already from those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the angel, when they come to take your soul, they tell you, why were you in such a situation? You said, oh, we were like weakened, we were a minority, we could not do anything, we didn't have any other way. He's going to tell you, was not the earth of Allah vast? So you just run with your deen. Where these people they're going to go? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said they're going to go to the hellfire. Why? Because they persisted on ignoring the way of the truth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarified in His book in a very clear way. In a very clear way, to the point like, do not sit in the company of those who are ridiculing the ayat of Allah. It is in two ayahs, in Surah Al-An'am, and the one that I have mentioned is in Surah Al-Nisa. Two ayahs. Why two ayahs? Because the first one was revealed in Mecca, so the believer, they said when they moved to the Medina, oh, this is because we were the disbeliever. He said, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the same rule should apply also because you have a lot of hypocrites around you. And the same thing here. They've been addressed, the Prophet ﷺ is among us, and we've been addressed here in a society, as I have said, is exclude Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from every aspect of their life. From every aspect of their life. The Prophet ﷺ saw in a dream, as a conclusion, to give us boost in our heart and to be really attached and holding fast to Allah, holding fast to the truth. And the only truth that exists in this universe is in the book of Allah. If you do not have this certainty in your heart, then ask Allah to help you to get it. The Prophet ﷺ saw in a dream, in his hand, قال, I have in my hand, قال رأيت وفي يدي سيئا فهززته فانقطع صدره. I left the sword, half of my sword was cut off. And that was what happened to the believer in Uhud. Then I lifted again, and it came back better than it was. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give us from Fath and the gathering of the believer on one heart. And we are witnessing the half of the sword who is broken today. But insha'Allah, the sword will become better and better by bringing the Fath to our people in Palestine, insha'Allah. That is the confidence in the heart of the believer. It might not happen in your time, but you have to contribute with it by being on the path of Allah, holding fast on Him, and just seeking your honor and your pride and your izzah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahumma ya arhamar rahimin, اغفر لنا ذنوبنا أجمعين. اللهم أعزنا بدينك. اللهم أعزنا بدينك ولا تذلنا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم لا تجعلنا من الذين يتولون الكفار والمنافقين. اللهم ارحمنا برحمتك يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر إخواننا في غزة وفلسطين والشام. اللهم ثبت أقدامهم. اللهم أفرغ عليهم صبرا. اللهم انصرهم على المعتدين الظالمين. إنك على كل شيء قدير وبالإجابة جدير. نعم المولى ونعم النصير. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. وأقم الصلاة يرحمكم الله.